Hi everyone, welcome back to week 3 of online learning. Here we have section 1.3, square roots and number line. So if you remember that 4 squared equals 16, because that means 4 times 4 equals 16, then what that means, if we did this, which you probably have seen in junior high, it's called the square root. Square root of 16, which means I multiply 4 by itself to get 16. Okay? It's kind of the exact opposite of the exponent there of 2. So if we do square root of 100, you have to, if you have good multiplication times tables, you can think, okay, well, what times itself gives me 100? Well, 10 times 10 does. So the square root of 100 is 10. I really try to do these in your head if you can. Most of these numbers should be in your times tables of like 1 through 10. We don't get, you're not going to have to know what 50 times 14 is or anything like that, but these are all, should be able to do 2 times 2, 3 times 3, 4 times 4, that kind of thing. And you should be able to do these in your head. If not, then pull up the calculator, okay? But for 1, well, the only way to get 1 is 1 times 1, which that is the square root of 1. Here, when you have a fraction now, you think to yourself, okay, well, what's the square root of 16 and what's the square root of 25? Kind of like separately. Well, square root is 16. What times itself twice gives me 16? I think that's 4 times 4. So 4 is going to be right here. But see how it's in a fraction? That means our answer is going to be in a fraction. And now square root of 25 is 5, because 5 times 5 is 25. So you notice how all of our answers here, right? The square root goes away. When you take the square root of 100, the answer is just a 10. Square root of 1 is just a 1. Here, we lose the square root because we're taking the square root, and we just take the square root of 16 over 25 to get 4 over 5. Okay? So for this one, when I see the fraction, I know our answer is going to be fraction, so sometimes I like to just write the fraction bar first. So 1 times 1 is 1, so that's the square root of 1. And I know that 3 times 3 is 9, so that's the square root of 9. Okay? Moving along. Again, always feel free to pause the video if you need more time to process or write down. 49. I think that one is 7 times 7 is 49. So I've got my fraction bar. 7's on top. And 4, what times itself gives me 4? That's 2. 2 times 2 does. All right, the very last one here. Again, you can pause the video if you want to try to do it by yourself. But I believe that 36, the square root of it, should be 6. And then 81, we're getting up there. That should be 9 times 9 is 81. Now, if this happens, this hasn't happened for any of these, but if this happens, technically, we can go one step further because 6 divided by 9, they have a common factor. Both of these numbers are actually divisible by 3, aren't they? So if you can divide the numerator and denominator, the top and bottom, if you can divide them by the same number, then you should to fully simplify it. So if you divided 6 by 3, that is 2. And if you divided 9 by 3, that's 3. So 6/9 is the same thing as 2/3, and 2/3 is the more simplified version of the fraction. Okay, moving on. So we're going to think about number line now. So when comparing numbers, think about a number line. Okay, number line's that left to right with every single number you can possibly imagine can fit somewhere on the number line. positive numbers are always right of 0. Okay, they're always right of 0. And negative numbers are left of 0. Okay, and then in general, as you move to the right, as you keep going right that way, the numbers get bigger. Okay, so for this first one, they want us to order them from least to greatest. That's important. Are we going small to big or big to small? Well, for a number line, technically, it always has to be small to big. But just sometimes it might just say list them from big to small, and that I wouldn't know if I would technically call that a number line. So if I listed these from smallest to biggest, and I use the idea of a number line to help. It actually, the instructions here say I don't necessarily need to write the number line, but least to greatest. So if I did think of a number line real quick, okay, I notice that all of these are negative. So all of these numbers are going to be the left of 0. So I'm going to have this small over here because we're not writing anything to the right of 0. So which of these is sort of the smallest negative? That means it would be closest to 0. Well, -8, let's just, I'm not going to do all the tick marks, but let's say, we're going along to the left of 0. -8 would actually come first, okay? Because it's negative, but it's not as negative as those other numbers, okay? So as you keep getting left, you keep getting more negative as we go this way. More negative as we go that way, okay? So -8 would be the smallest negative, and then -24 would be the next biggest negative, and then way down over here would be the -30. I know this isn't drawn to scale, but that's the general idea, thinking the number line, okay? So if I want to list these from least to greatest, meaning I know these are all negative, and it's hard to think of a negative number ever being big or great, right? But if we did this from most negative to least negative, -30 would be the most negative we have. So that would come first. So on our answer, we would say -30, comma, then -24, comma, then -8. And this is listed from least to greatest, biggest negative to the smallest negative we have, okay? And if I arranged them on a number line to help. Now, can you sometimes maybe do this number line in your head and then think about what's to the farthest left? That comes first, then the next number, and then the next? Sure. If you can imagine the number line in your head, go right ahead and do that. So here, if we did the number line, I'm just going to put 0 like in the middle here. So any negatives, those have to go left of 0, okay? So there's only one. It's -13. Again, I'm not going to worry about making little tick marks to make it drawn to scale. But I know -13 is somewhere over here to the left of 0. And then we have positives, which are going to go right of 0. So then, well, which one's like the smallest positive? Who's smaller, 13 or 1.3? Well, 1.3 is definitely smaller than 13. So 1.3 would go here on the number line, and then 13 would be somewhere way down here. Again, not drawn to scale. But we have the right order now, from least to greatest. So -13 comes first. That's the smallest, least number we have. 1.3 is in the middle, and then 13 is the biggest number, the greatest we have right here. Okay? So that hopefully that helps. I'm going to try to do this one without drawing the number line to try to help out some of you working on your mental math. Who is the biggest negative? who's the biggest negative? Well, negative 9.4 is definitely a bigger negative than these two. So negative 9.4 comes first. And again, what's the next biggest negative? Again, these are both negative. The 2.6, 2.8 are both negative. 2.8 is a bigger negative than 2.6. So that comes next. And then the negative 2.6 comes last. Okay? That's sort of the thought process here, right? Again, these are negatives, okay? So usually the numbers get bigger. I know technically it looks like the numbers are getting smaller, but we're getting smaller negative. It means that these are getting, technically, quote unquote, these numbers are getting bigger as we go to the right. Okay, now we have some fun ones that have some square roots in them. All right, if anytime you look at a number and you go, man, I am not sure what that is, right? Or where it even belongs in the number line. Okay? Like looking at all these numbers previously, we had a general idea where they would go in the number line, right? 1.3 would be in between 1 and 2. Negative 13 is between negative 14 and negative 12, right? So here, if you look at a number and you go, man, square root of 2, I have no idea on the number line where that is, then you can plug it into a calculator, okay? Just know that in general, square root of 4 is bigger than the square root of 2. They're both square roots, and 4 is bigger than 2, so square root of 4 is bigger than square root of 2. But still, if you like to figure out where that is, you can type that into a calculator. Hopefully you have one at home. I'm going to type square root of 2 in on my Google calculator. So if you go to type in calculator on Google, you can type in square root of 2. And it tells me this is 1.4, about. 1.4 and some other stuff. 1.4 about. You can even type in the fractions. So if I did negative 2/3 in the calculator, this is about negative 0.6. Okay? And then square root of 4, I can actually do that one in my head because I know that's a perfect square, it's called. This is not perfect, right? You can't really do this in your head. 4, square root of 4, you can do this in your head because you should know that 2 times 2 is 4. So this is 2. Okay, it's a nice perfect number. This one's a decimal. Those you really can't do in your head. Okay, we have a general idea of what all our numbers are. So let's try to order them from least to greatest. So if we did, there's a lot going on here. I'm going to go back to my number line. Okay, back to my number line. I see negatives and positives, so I'm just going to put a 0 somewhere in the middle. And then I ask myself, okay, who is the biggest negative? We've got negative 0.6, negative 1.5. 1.5 is bigger than 0.6. This is a bigger negative. That's going to come first. Negative 1.5. Then the other negative, because there's only two options here. Then the negative 0.6. Okay, we're all done with negatives. Sometimes if you like to kind of cross them off as you go, so you don't get confused on what you still have to do, that's a good idea. So now we have 2, 0.4, 1.4. Well, now we're in positive, so it's a little easier to tell. Negatives, we can still kind of get mixed up, but hopefully you see that 0.4 is the smallest positive. Then the next smallest is 1.4, and then 2 is our last number here. Okay? And here we go. We have ordered these from least to greatest. Okay? On the MathXL, they might want you to leave it as a number line maybe, or MathXL might want you to maybe use this as like sort of work to kind of get them in order and then just list them in order after. So just keep that in mind. It's good practice to practice them both ways. Okay. Also keep in mind that MathXL might want you, if you converted them into a decimal, to kind of understand where they are on the number line. In the actual answer, they might want you to write out what the original was. So we never had a negative 0.6. We had this negative 2/3. So they might take this, or they might want you to write it out with the negative 1.5. And this was really a negative 2/3. That's how it was originally presented to us. Then we had the 0.4. The 1.4 was actually a square root of 2, and the 2 was really a square root of 4. So again, MathXL might have this as the final answer, okay? And we use these decimals to sort of help us get to this final answer. All right, and now we are on our last problem here. So if you need help to convert these into decimals, awesome. So we already have decimals here. This one is actually, we actually did this up number 4, square root of 9 is 3. 7 divided by 2, what is that? 7 over 2, 7 divided by 2. Well, negative, right? This is actually a negative 3.5. And then the square root of 5 is about 2.2. Okay? So I'm just going to put these in order, least to greatest, and then I'm going to make sure I actually use the original, what they should be, and not what I sort of changed them to be, just so I can kind of get a general idea. All right, biggest negative. We have negative 2.1, negative 3.5. That one's bigger, the 3.5. So negative 3.5 comes first. Then our other negative, which is the negative 2.1. So we've taken care of both of those. So now we have 3.5, 3, 2.2. Well, 2.2 is the smallest positive. Then the 3 would come. That's the next biggest positive. And ended off with the 3. Darn it. I was supposed to put a square root of 5 here, sorry. Square root of 5. The 3 was really a square root of 9. I told myself I was going to do this. And then the 3.5 is just 3.5. Did I forget to do anything else? Sorry. This negative 3.5 was really a negative 7.5. 7/2. So it really should go negative 7/2, then the negative 2.1, then the square root of 5, square root of 9, 3.5. I told myself this is why I did too much in my head there. Okay. Well, that is that. That's it for 1.3. And I will see you guys in the Zooms and next time.